Can you start by telling us your name, role, and institution?
So I'm Karen Clark. I'm a research scientist at the Medical College of Wisconsin, and I work with the TCDC team to basically wrangle all the data that all the various investigators submit to us as part of their milestone plan. And the data wrangling can take, the form of their FDA interaction documents, any information about clinical trials and just helpful hints, tips, and tricks for getting over those big hurdles of FDA approval for your first in human INDs for a gene therapy.
The TCDC is creating free resources focused on gene therapy on the platform website. Can you highlight a few of these resources?
Yeah, so one of the resources that we've had the longest is our gene therapy trial browser. And the way that this resource started was I was asked about what kind of tools that were out there for tracking gene editors that were in the clinic, and whether there was a single way to sort of get all that data together. And there really wasn't any good resources, especially not free ones. I spoke to a company at one point who maintains a database similar to ours, but they charge you about $30,000 a year to access that data. And so I really felt strongly that we needed a free tool that and basically try to make the best tool we possibly could, but still offer it for free. So we launched the gene therapy trial browser a little over a year ago. It contains about 400 different drug products, and each drug product is basically a has a report page that is a sort of self-contained list of every single thing that could possibly have to do with that drug product. So, publications about that drug product are linked all in one place. A lot of things are sorted and sort of organized in standardized ways. So, if you wanted to know a list of, say, every single gene therapy that uses an AAV2 capsid, you could use our data set to do that. If you are interested in all of the adenine base editing products out there, you could use our data set to do that. And all the indications are standardized according to the disease ontology IDs. So we've tried to streamline things and make it as standardized as possible so that, my use case would be, you're writing a landscape analysis for a gene therapy, or I guess like say you are writing a landscape analysis about AAV use in the clinic and you wanted to I wanted my site to be basically a one-stop shop to get all the information you would need to write that sort of paper, or landscape analysis about all the different gene therapy trials that are currently ongoing or have ever been used for a disease area of interest. So that's one tool that I think that's been getting some attention lately. Um, and like we worked really hard on it. Another tool that we have are the regulatory documents. So basically, we made a essentially an infographic the way a lot of sponsors do when they are, highlighting to interested parties in the community about the progress of their programs. They'll have, little arrows kind of showing the progress. And so we wanted to make a similar graphic for the disease programs that the SCGE is working on. And we also have the publications that these groups have submitted, or had been approved, I guess not approved, any sort of publications that would go into the the preclinical work that was done for these programs. We link those in place, as well as any regulatory documents that were submitted to us. So um, when these individuals are going through the process of engaging with the FDA for interact meetings or pre-IND meetings, they submit documents to the FDA to sort of give the FDA all the information they need to have a meaningful discussion. And then in turn, the FDA provides written responses based on those sort of briefing books. And then if anything changes based on what is discussed in the meeting, they'll submit a revised version that kind of is the meeting summary and the official record of the meeting. And a lot of the SCGE investigators have been submitting those documents to us. And so we host them on our site so that anybody can see what kinds of questions our groups are asking the FDA, what the FDA's responses are. And then that kind of allows people to get a sense of what best practices are, like what's working and what's not when you engage with the agency. Um, and then a final tool that we have that we just launched this spring is a series of resources for filling out a IND for the first time. So this tool is basically born out of a discussion I had last year at ASGCT. A gentleman who was the father of a patient with a rare disease had tried to do his own startup. He submitted like his organization had submitted some forms to the FDA, but those were rejected because they weren't in the right format. And I thought that was really sad. So I thought if we can, as the TCDC, can do some of that lift and basically figure out what the format needs to be and then provide templates in the correct format and then just give them out for free, that can help people like that in the future. As well as people who have never submitted an IND before. Maybe they don't have the funds to employ a regulatory specialist. So I basically went through the all the different components of a FDA submission, and I went line by line and basically annotated what each one was in as plain language as I could, as well as some notes about under what context a submission would be required for that thing. So, for certain for certain components of the submission, you have to submit that form all the time. There's other ones that, you'd only need to submit if you were planning to do these very specific steps. And then there's other ones that nobody realistically submits that type of information prior to their marketing application. So, you know, individuals who are submitting their initial IND don't need to worry about that for many years potentially. As and so all of these items are listed, all the context for submission is listed, as well as any guidance documents that you would need in order to fill out that piece of that form or that piece of information, any FDA regulations that basically require the filling out of that information, um, templates, example text where we could get them. So just trying to keep all of it into one place, just to make it as easy for people as possible when doing these very complex forms, especially for the first time.
Great. And you touched on this, but how could different audiences benefit from these resources that you've mentioned?
So I think the biggest thing is that everything is publicly available and free. We're not going to charge anybody to use any of it. So it's all based on, and then I've also tried to write a lot of the explanations to be in as plain language as I can, just to add accessibility. So the people who aren't really going to benefit from this site are companies where they have designated people employed to, either track clinical trials that are relevant, or they have regulatory professionals that are designated for programs that they don't need any of this information. But patient advocacy groups could potentially benefit from this because they have limited funds, and this is one thing we can provide to them for free that is where they can get some of the information. We've tried to make a lot of these tools like very, educational, sort of the ABCs of INDs rather than like more advanced type of information that, you wouldn't necessarily um you don't need like my hope is that you don't need any sort of advanced degrees to utilize this information and it would be of benefit to anybody. Um but I think everybody benefits from information that's all collected into one place and laid out in a aesthetic way that's as um streamlined and user-friendly as we can possibly make it.
So, what are some of the future updates or additions that you're hoping to add to this platform site in the next year or so?
So, we're always adding new drug programs to the gene therapy trial browser. We are hoping to add more regulatory documents as more of the SCGE investigators are submitting requests for the pre-IND meetings and interact meetings. So those are some new resources, and I think the more information you have about what people are asking the agency and what the agency is responding with, the more useful it is. So, so those are a couple of big things, and just continuing to make improvements to the IND templates. We're adding in new examples as people make those available. We're adding new guidance documents as the agency releases them. And we are going to try to rework some of the submission context information to just be as clear as we can make it. We've gotten some feedback saying that here's a place where this piece of information could be more clear. So we take that feedback really seriously, and we try to rework it so that people don't get confused. We hate to confuse people, so we would like to make it as easy to understand as possible. And another piece of information that we'd like to build is some more guidance on some of the special FDA designations that are available for gene therapy type products. So adding a new sort of portal for how you might submit an orphan drug designation request, a fast track designation request, a breakthrough designation request. So adding some more guidance beyond just the level of the whole IND, but more of these designated programs and who you submit them to, where you submit them, how you formulate the submission. Details about that I think would be helpful to the community. So that's sort of where we're going in the next year or so.
Okay, great. And then switching topics for our last question. In the next 10 years, what is something that you predict or hope will happen in the gene therapy field?
I think the one thing that I've been seeing a lot, the agency is driving this and some other groups are driving this as well, is just the focus on transparency. So I'm hoping that our site can be, a blueprint for how you provide some of these services for free. Whether that looks like, future NIH funding to continue to provide the site for free. I think that is only to the benefit of the community. If just more resources are as accessible as we can make them, if we could involve, modify our gene therapy browser to include more information that the community is asking for, such as information about adverse events, even just a way to track some of the clinical data that people are seeing and, have a standardized sort of way that that is presented so that everybody in the community could be aware of the same information. I think that would be wonderful and a dream.